Okay, well, this is the contents of the second day. We will start with business intelligence, and then IP strategies, and then at the end we will have quick overviews of some figures of the use of this kind of tools in HBP. But as we agreed yesterday, I will use some minutes to explain a little bit about the European Innovation Council, and then how to prepare proposals and what should be the type of services we can offer to you in terms of helping in preparing this kind of proposals. I'm not saying the success because it doesn't depend on us, but at least to help in the preparation of this kind of proposals. But let me start first with the business intelligence issues. And then here, basically, what is the concept of technology and market watch, and why these kind of things are relevant? Um, Frankly speaking, every institution, every kind of entity, both public and private, should have a corporate strategy for innovation. And then this corporate strategy for innovation means that you need at the end to collect information coming from different sources, and then to analyze this kind of information to provide outputs to support the decision-making process. Then at the end, this entity should have a business intelligence in a formal way or an informal way. In fact, today we are proposing for eBrains the creation of a formal business intelligence unit to do that for the future. And it has been it is in discussion in the board of the ASBL from eBrains in order to know how to organize it for the future. Because at the end, you need to consider simultaneously information related to the evolution of technologies and how these technologies could impact on your kind of products and services, the evolution of markets, because you need also to consider what should be your potential competitors, and to what extent you need to react to the offer from competitors. Also, it's important to understand the evolution of regulations, because in some cases, these regulations should be considered. Imagine in our case, a new regulation of data privacy, for instance, it could affect a lot about the way that we could manage the records and things like that, or even ethical issues related to the regulations offered not only by in the European Union, but in many other cases. If you are addressing a global market, you need also to see how regulation is also changing in other countries. And then at the end, this is much more important, is the evolution of users' needs. Because you need to be in close contact with your potential users to know their needs, to know the requirements they have, and then to be sure that your products and services in the market fulfill their needs. And remember yesterday that we made an emphasis on the idea that you need to put things into the market that satisfy users' needs, but you need to know them. You cannot invent the user's need, waiting that maybe the potential user will require that. Now you need to be sure about that. Then to do that, this business intelligence will use a set of different kinds of tools. Maybe some of you have participated in Delphi studies. Delphi Analysis is just a group of people that try to understand the feature by providing some kind of answers to a lot of questions that are designed to facilitate your analysis about the feature. And then in the second round, you could also see at what extent the panel of experts working in Delphi study it could converge. And then at the end, by having a lot of well-identified people, you could obtain a clear picture about what should be the evolution they are thinking of. I haven't time today to explain Delphi, but I would like in the context of HGA3 to be able next year to organize some Delphi study on some of the areas, because it could be also useful to understand if everybody agrees on a potential evolution of eBrains for the future. We will wait to know the results of the evaluation in S3 for eBrains, but we'll have time next year to do that. Another thing that is even more common is to have a risk analysis, risk management This is risk management is a very well-known technique used in many cases when you need to consider what type of risk could appear and how to mitigate them. What should be the type of actions I need to implement in order to reduce the impact of these risks. We will discuss it. Also, there are also experts panels for different things, and then just to collect a lot of people and then in a brainstorming to know their opinions or to know how they feel about some new performance or some new functionality that you need to offer. And then sometimes it's also related to a scenarios analysis, the scenarios for the future, considering a lot of different kind of possibilities, and then to see what should be the most probable scenario for the future. We will discuss them. This information is also very useful not only for your company, but in many cases, this is also useful for partners, for national administration, for EC agencies, industry partners. Everybody could have this kind of business intelligence to support their decision making. Then this is the goal of this concept of business intelligence. Remember, for instance, what should be the potential use of these things in the context of the health sector. For instance, if we're proposing something new, disruptive set of services to be offered to customers, you need to know if the health market is ready to accept my products. In our case, we are working on a digital brain, if you like, where everything is just the convergence between neuroscience concept with digital tools. Then the question could be, is my health market ready to accept the full digitalization of products and services? It will be accepted by everybody. More specifically, is the neuroscience market ready to accept my products? Because maybe my product will arrive on the market too early to be accepted by everybody, or I need to change the mentality of many of the neurologists working in hospital for that. And then the question is, are neurology services in hospital ready for that? Because here we could find one of the typical risks we need to manage, because maybe they are not ready for that. They are not ready means that they haven't the skills necessary to use them. They don't know how to use them in practice. They don't see the advantages that this kind of products could have. Then at the end, you need to answer this kind of question. And this is part of the business intelligence. Then at the end, based on this kind of information and the understanding in parallel, the identification of the customer's needs, you need to make decisions. And to make decisions maybe in a safe way, just not to include very, very strange things. And then to be sure that at least in the first step, you are offering something that could be clearly accepted by the market, or no, or you have to make risky decisions and then to use a revolutionary way to provide things that nobody are offering at this moment, even in the case that maybe you will have more problems to convince a potential customer to use them. Here, speaking in terms of e-brains for hospitals, you will need you will need to have an effort to convince neurosurgeons, for instance, about the use or the advantages of using this kind of tools. And then maybe you will find a lot of barriers to do that, because nobody likes to change everything, their mentality or the way of doing things, and then these problems appear. There are risks in the market. Then, based on that, this kind of decision making should provide also the basis for the understanding the future. Maybe today, and I have represented here today in this graph, I have covered a set of milestones, and I have my product here at this moment with a clear set of functionalities. But how to evolve these products or these services for the future? Maybe I could introduce new type of technology that could help me because they offer additional functionality not offered today, but it could be useful. Last month, we were discussing with some research groups here in HBP about the introduction of virtual and augmented reality in part of our activities. And then at what extent part of the products we are developing in HBP could benefit from integrating technologies from virtual and augmented reality technologies. And to what extent it could introduce additional functionality that could be very interesting for the potential users. You know that now there are some efforts in surgery rooms to include virtual reality things. No? Is it something useful, for instance, in order to use atlases in HBP or in Nest? And how to use them? At what extent it could be something really useful and considered very relevant in the market? We need to explore that, because then we could also have we could use these disruptive kind of technologies to be incorporated into our products. There will be also for the future different kind of scenarios, and then we cannot predict too much today. Today we're speaking today. What should be the future? Because maybe we depend on disruptive changes in other technology we are not using today. But it could be also relevant to think about a scenario, for instance, more or less an evolution of the situation today, nothing really disruptive with respect to the current situation, or yes, and then we need to move to another scenario. If we are moving to the future, the scenario is much more difficult to see at what extent the technology will penetrate into the market, because there are more or lack of information for the future. But this is something that many companies are doing, trying to understand the future, and on the basis of that to see at what extent our products and services should evolve to incorporate these new functionalities. It's a typical example, just to pay attention to something that everybody knows. Could you imagine the smartphone in 2025, in 5 years from now? Well, everybody has a smartphone in the pocket. And then here there are also two different types of scenarios. What could be an evolutionary view? Well, it's more or less the same type of smartphone I have today, but with better performance. For instance, 1 week battery life, but today usually is 1 day or 2 days at the maximum. I don't know, but in 5 days we will have a battery for 5 days. Well, a folded smartphone with larger screen. Well, we know that there are some prototypes. It's not very common, but well, maybe in the future, even not only to fold it, but to unfold the phone, but also to extract here as a thin layer to have a very large screen, 3D cameras. Well, there are some prototypes today. Everything artificial intelligence powered software. Yeah, a standardized plugin, which is also not relevant, but could be important in the future. A smart connection to wearables, where the smartphone became the node, the central node of a body network with several types of wearables. It's just, we are running in this way. Embedded cybersecurity, well, things like that. It corresponds to a typical evolutionary scenario, where practically we consider that the product could be more or less the same. But even people could say, no, we are moving to another totally different concept of a smartphone. And a smartphone that it doesn't exist today. For instance, a smartphone integrated in the user's lens with augmented reality and virtual reality capabilities. Well, there are some companies working on that. Maybe in the market in 2025, I don't know. But this is a revolutionary scenario with no keyboard, only voice communication, holographic screen projection, personal communication avatar to do a lot of work on behalf of your interests or wishes, embedded automatic real-time translation. Well, you know that we're working I'm professor in telecommunication engineering, and then we are working on this kind of things. And then that's incredible. At this moment in labs, we can have an automatic real-time translation, and then I can speak with another person speaking in Chinese, Mandarin, and then I can understand it in Spanish and vice versa. With more and more words included, and then with the more awareness of the context of the speech. Yeah. Energy source from body movement. Well, there are some examples in this way. Now, for you, 2025 is too early. We cannot expect this kind. And in 2030? Well, 2030. Then if you provide a Delphi study with a lot of people working that, you could make this kind of question. Do you feel that the user's lens could be the basis for the smartphone in the future? And then people could say, yes, no, not in 25, but yes, in 2030 or never. And this kind of information are also useful. Moving to our field. This is, for instance, could you imagine what should be the neurosurgery room for the future? Again, I could have an evolutionary view.
¿Cómo?
No le da el carrete la vida. Está en el mismo problema que yo, que tienes que generar esa.
I'm sorry, was there any question or not? If you have any question, please interrupt me. Don't worry. And then evolutionary view, I could say here, well, this is the I have copied from one. I have put here the link. This is the surgery room for neurosurgery room that they are implementing at this moment in some hospitals over the world. Maybe this is not common in many places, but it's just a full use of image processing, data, etc. But this is running. Maybe in 25, it should be the typical one. Or we're moving to a revolutionary view. In these cases, I didn't like to put any figure because it doesn't exist, but you could think about that. And then the question is not only to know the future in this way, it's also relevant to see what should be the role of e-brains in the future. We are saying at this moment in the S3 proposal for e-brains that we need to have an operation of e-brains until 2035, if I remember well. 35. And then, well, do you know what should be the future at the time? What should be the type of things we could offer, for instance, for neurosurgery? Because to know that is very, very relevant to know what should be the steps necessary to evolve our products and services. Yeah, but it's just to identify the feature, I need to understand to start from some kind of signals. It's in the field of business intelligence, the term used is early signals. Early signals could appear from many things. For instance, unexpected release of new products and services from the perspective of companies. You need to detect this kind of news from companies and to detect from the news what is the sounded basis for the news and which are simply marketing messages, which is not easy in many cases. You need to distinguish very well if this news responds to a deep change in the functionality and technology offered, or it just simply is part of the cloud of messages to the market. Again, you need also to understand the technology improvements with the ability to cause disruptions in some fields. Because in some cases, this new technology could also offer the possibility to use your products and services for a new categories of clients. We are thinking now, for instance, in hospitals, but you are thinking in patients at home. Is it something in brains could be used by end users at home? No, it's just only for hospital, or not. You need to think of that until 35. And then this is part of the problems. Then what should be the sources for these signals? Well, this is a typical list, non-exhaustive list, but you have here, for instance, from the academic perspective, articles and journals, Congress communications, priorities selected in RTD programs, projects that have been funded by funding agencies, doctoral theses, follow-up of key researchers, because you take them as a reference point, patents, private communications and cases about people were thinking on, selected websites, blogs, newsletter. All of them are open source of information. We are not saying here, except the private communication that is obviously is just an exchange of letters with another person, just to understand. Do you feel that? This kind of question that is typically in between academics, and this is also relevant. And from the enterprise perspective, the early signal will come from specialized magazines related to industrial world, priorities again in RTD programs, selected public projects. Here I'm saying public into quotes, because in many cases the access to information on the private projects is not so easy to get in the industrial world. In the case of academic, practically the 100% of them are funded through public sources. Then this information is open. Follow-up of key firms, this is also relevant. Everybody now is understanding, or at least is trying to understand what a Neuralink is doing for the future. We have some news offered by Neuralink, but not necessarily it should be the type of things that could be available in the next 3 or 4 years. White papers, standards, technology fairs, tender specification are also very useful. Enterprise gurus is responsible to the same concept of reference academics, and then selected again blogs, newsletter, websites, etc. There's a lot of information, but I need to understand it. Coming back to eBrains. Well, I have eBrains here today. It is evolving. We'll have at the end of the year more integrated, or at least more mature things. The same at the end of the next year, the same at the end of the project, and then even it should be the basis for the future. And then usually, and this is one of the mistakes that we suffer many times in many entities, that we're paying attention to our work. We only pay attention to the blue boxes here. This is brains here, brains, but the brains is not living totally isolated from the rest of the world. There will be also other people at different levels creating additional things. And in some cases, some of them will become competitors. And then we need also how these competitors could evolve. Because I've not explained here in this graph, but obviously with the information from competitors, you need to know at what extent you need to speed up, for instance, the provision of some kind of services, because if you are not doing that, your competitor will win in the market. And this is a typical problem that many companies trying to develop products and services need to face every day. Because, I have information, my early signals, that these guys will have something at the end of the year with this kind of functionality. And then my initial planning was to provide this kind of functionality at the end of the next year. Then the question from the big boss is always the same. Please, is it possible to speed up, to accelerate the development of this functionality to be included today or the year before my competitors? This is the problem. One example that I was discussing, this is information from last week. This is, for instance, I'm interested in something that could be useful. Again, I'm using the example of a neurosurgery, and then for the surgical navigation. Well, maybe some of the functionality of my brains could support it. And then it should be relevant for me to know that last month, one company in United States received 36 million euros. It's a Series C. Series B, A, B, C, just the rounds for funding of new companies. This is the very interesting thing, by providing augmented reality things and then this could be a signal for me. Or another one, there are some C-Spine holdings have paid 110 million for one company, 7D surgical, And then it's just a vision-based image-guided surgical system to improve workflow and reduce radiation exposure, blah, 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 on cranial surgeries. It could be part of the map I have represented here, and I need to know them, because if I'm not interested on that, maybe I could find that these guys could offer something to hospitals and they will arrive earlier than you. Well, then at the end, I need to follow some of these signals in groups. These are the critical watch factors. What to watch? What are the critical factors to watch? The information, the factors to accelerate or delay the development, maybe, for instance, because they are waiting for some new type of lens, virtual lens, which are not available today, but maybe how the technology is being developed, what is the development level of my competitors. These are the things that I need to consider. And this is part of the business intelligence. Sometimes this business intelligence requires also to have a network of people in other parts of the world to be able to scout what is happening. Then some years ago, they proposed to have scouting techniques in order to build up a network of experts to provide this information and then to feed up technology management, technology foresight for the future in order to facilitate decision making. For my case, several companies are creating this network of scouting with people trying to understand what is happening in some specific places. If you were interested in neurorobotics, maybe to have one person or to use some services, not necessarily one individual, physical person, working in Japan or Korea to see what is happening there. At what extent hospitals there are using this kind of technologies or not. Another one could be in United States, another one in, I don't know. Then it should be also, this scouting networks could be also divided into domains, not only geography, but basically on the one for robots, another one for dealing with I don't know, with simulation techniques, another one with microprocessors or microelectronics wearables, and so on. And then you could have regular inputs from this network in order to feed up your decision-making process. Then in our project, we will need to understand what should be the technologies behind part of our services we are providing. With respect to brain atlases, what should be the technologies in the future that we need to watch? And what should be the concept to watch here? Or this brain simulation, or the brain-inspired computation, or brain medical platform, or neurorobotics, or brain interfaces, etc., etc., etc. And these efforts should be done regularly because they are not totally isolated things. In many cases, one disruptive technology could affect not only one of them, but would affect several of them simultaneously, because there are some side effects that could be considered. Then, at the end, my message here is that the future is not easy to understand, for sure, but I need to use early signals, information from different sources, etc., to feed up my decision making. I need to do that in a professional way, trying to consider possible scenarios, to use this information to make decisions sounded, because if not, and then to pay attention to my potential competitors, because if not, I could face huge problems at the end. This is the problem. Market watch, for instance, is very relevant. Let me put now 3 or 4 slides about market watch to see what should be the concept that we need to use here. Market watch means that I need to consider how the market is evolving. Here we have a problem because we have to address the 2 types of markets. One is a professional one that maybe they could pay for some of the services. In our case, we are working for the scientific market, what maybe some of them will receive for free part of the basic services we need to offer in eBrains. But there are different types of markets with different segments of users. And then we need to understand that. Then what should be the market segment, the brain market segments we need to do? What the markets are at this moment? What is the growth, annual growth of this market? What is the hot spots in the geography of these markets? The same would happen with brain companies. What are the type of companies that exist today or could exist in the future with the startups or spin-offs in the process of creation? What is the size of the company? What is the segment they are addressing? What is the type of investment we have? Our public one, private one? If a private, what should be the behavior of investors here in this center? What are the mergers and acquisitions? What is the behavior of the big players? Both big pharma, but maybe big ICT companies. Then, based on that, I need to decide, even to know what should be the possible sources for funding. I will come back now with the European Innovation Council, but at the end, you need to consider that you need to use a combination of public and private funds. Public, basically, for innovative projects or line of products. But in many other cases, firm creation and firm growth, typical case of the evolution of a startup, will depend not only on the international entities, public ones, maybe at the very beginning, but not necessarily at the end. We will see now how EIC is working. And then you will need also to rely on risk capital investment or even commercial banking system for loans. Then to have this map of the evolution is part of the activities we need to do in the project to support the creation of startups or the spin-offs created on the basis of the results at this moment. And then you need to know how the market and the investments are growing up. This picture is from the last week. It's from one of the reports I could access from CivInsight. CivInsight is a very interesting company that provides this kind of, this is a tracking of the investments in startups and venture capitals and things like that. You know? If you like to register, enter into the web page of CivInsight, and then, if I remember well, for 1 month, you could access for free. At the end, you need to pay. But that's interesting because it's just a report last week for the healthcare, where you have, for instance, what has happened in the first quarter of the year. So very, very recent information. Whoa, they're growing up. That's interesting because I know that there are, at this moment, a lot of funding for these things in million, 35 million, and then with the deals are responsible to agreements to fund one company, and they are growing up. And then even it's important that this kind of reports could also offer you an idea about where these fundings appear. And then you could see here that the paying attention to the last column on the first quarter of the year, that were North America, Asia, Europe, and other places. Europe is here. Compare the situation to North America. It reflects one of the difficulties that European startups could have, is that the difficulties to access to risk capital. I'm speaking in the healthcare area. As you know, healthcare is a very broad field, and then we have here subsegments. Yeah, paying, you could obtain information in subsegments of this kind. But anyway, it reflects a concept. That is the reason that many European startups are thinking for the second round or third round to move to the United States, because probably it should be easier for them to get resources or venture capital funds for them. You see? And then you need also to consider, for instance, what is the behavior of big pharma? Are they also supporting these kind of things? In these cases, from the same report, I have extracted this information that big pharma is partnering with AI companies. Here is also very relevant because they feel that it's not possible for them to work only with the internal knowledge. Remember the concept of open innovation I presented yesterday. They say, no, I need to make this kind of agreements, partnerships with other companies. And Ictus collaborated with Pfizer. Cambridge Quantum with Roche. Mila with AstraZeneca. Valence Discovery with... what is happening here? And then it is also very relevant because are big players working together. And this is also very important. Obviously, you need also to consider what is happening from the regulatory side. And then at this moment, the European Union has a huge package, a legislative package on digital areas. And then maybe we need to consider very well what is the legislation that maybe in the near future will be available in Europe, because the legislation, you know, it could be an opportunity to use this regulation to improve your position in the markets, but sometimes it's also a barrier because it's not possible then to apply, at least in Europe, some of the ideas you have in mind, because regulation will not provide the basis for that. Maybe in the United States, because we haven't a single regulation over the world, or in other countries. And then to know that, it's part of the business intelligence you need to create. Then, as a consequence of that, the idea is that some internal unit, maybe through the coordination of several teams specialized in different areas, should provide this kind of information for the decision-making bodies of the different type of entities. And these are the typical technology watcher reports. Periodical intelligence briefs, dedicated web pages with internal use, basically, specific webinars to discuss the results, etc. No? Then my feeling is that in the e-brains period, probably we'll need to create something like that, because it's very relevant to know what should be the evolution until 2035, which is obviously is not written today. Then, as you could imagine, we have also a lot of possible potential risks. That is the idea that the management of any innovation projects, you need to incorporate a set of procedures to manage risks. Risks means something that could modify the planning process you have. And risk could have it because you have found unexpected type of problems which were not clearly identified from the very beginning, or maybe other types of problems are not internal into your project, but in the context. That all things we have mentioned here, the movement of potential competitors, the creation of a new technology that could change the field, or the regulatory changes, all of them could be risks in my conventional planning of my project. When I was working in the 80s, many years ago, in a multinational company in the telecommunications sector, I remember that at that time, we were developing an electronic board to control several floppy disks. Well, you know that the floppy disk was used at that time to store information in a computer. And then we have some board to control 8 floppy disks. And then in the middle of the project, we realized that another company, I don't like to say the name, was announcing the introduction into the market of a microcontroller to do exactly the same that we had in a board like that. Suddenly, you realize that what to do, to finish the project, and then probably we can finish maybe next summertime, but the new microcontroller will appear in the market at the end of the summer. And just to have only 2 months as a window to enter into the market and to win the market, very difficult. And then at that time, we decided to stop the project because it was not necessary, this kind of product. And then the question is, but why not to identify these risks from the very beginning? Well, it was not easy because we were considering this possibility, but we were thinking in maybe this kind of microcontroller will be available in 1 year more. And then we have time to recover the investment, etc., and to cover our needs. No, it appeared 1 year earlier. Wow. Then to identify the risks, to analyze the risks, to mitigate the risks, just to create a set of actions to reduce the problems with the risks are very important. And then to make this monitoring continuously. This is the concept of risk management. That at the end, I need to include in my project to develop anything, one set of procedures to describe the risks, to identify, to make a quantitative analysis of the risk, to make the plan response, the mitigation of the risks, and then to control, to monitor, how to assess if the risk will be a reality, will become a reality or not. Then in large projects, in a project with 3 or 4 people, maybe these functions are distributed in the small group of people working in the project. But in other cases, you need to create a group of people, specifically a group of people to manage risks. And then they need to know experiences, lessons learned, the project documentation, the interview to selected people, etc. Even the scouting network I have used, this is part should be of this scouting network. And then to provide this list of identified risks with an initial rationale. And then you need to analyze. To analyze risks, you could use many techniques. This is one of the examples of a graphical one I like very much to use. Is the fishbone analysis of the Ishikawa diagrams, invented many years ago in Japan, where they try to offer possibility for a group of people, because it should work in a group of people, to understand what should be the causes of this risk. Imagine that you have a problem, it could be a risk in my project, and then what should be the causes? Primary causes, well, they belong to the market evolution, and there's some reasons are here. Maybe this is a market problem because this one, and then this one is because there is a secondary causes, or depending on the technology, or depends on people, or depends on the environment. Imagine regulation, to put an example. And then you could continue this analysis on the second level or even a third level, depending on the complexity, until you reach a level where everything is understood. Then, okay, I understand why these risks could appear. And then I should be the basis to understand what should be the actions to mitigate it. Let me put an example. This is not a clear, a real example. It's just an example of the examples. In this case, it's just to put, well, imagine that one of the risks that we have with e-brains is that the services are not attractive for clinical use. This is a problem, because if we're inventing something to be used in hospitals, and then it seems they are not attractive enough, we will have a problem. Then, if we analyze the causes of this risk, we could say, oh, some of them will come from the environment. But regulation is not possible then, because some of the elements we are producing are limitation, because regulation for medical devices provides some problems here. Or this is a lack of funding, or that the lack of funding is why, because no private investments are working in this way, or because there is no priority in the EU programs, maybe. Another type of things in the market, causes in the market, or maybe there's a poor cost benefits, it's too expensive, we need to offer them by paying these kind of services, but nobody likes to pay because there's not a clear added value for them. Or there are better tools in the market, they need to pay, but they prefer to buy another thing from my competitor. And why? Why? Because they have a higher performance. Or the technology, because that is not mature enough. And why is not mature? Because we need to have a user feedback, and they have poor user feedback here. or just a support, or for people. That's not accepted by neurosurgeons. They feel that they need other things, or this is not relevant. The clinical data we are offering are not relevant for the daily operation here, or there's a lack of skills, and this is not included a good set of training courses to help them in adopting this new technology. In practice, you need to devote much more time to this kind of analysis to do that. Because here you could say, well, which is the most important one? Most important one, here I put here with the, just in the graphical picture, I have put here this dark line with thicker to say, oh, this is the most important one. And the most important one here is at the competitors area. Then I need to pay much more attention here than in other cases. Again, this is an opinion, shared opinion by the group of people working in the risk management. And then as a consequence of that, I could provide a map where I can place my identified risks in a map, in a matrix. From one side, the risk probability. What is the probability that this risk could appear? 100%. Well, 100% is not a risk. It's something that I need to include into my project per se, because it could happen. But in many other cases, you have a probability. And also the probability of the impact, which is different. What it should be the effect of that. Then I need to place then in this bidimensional matrix between probabilities and impacts. Let me put an example, a very example. What is the probability that the meteorite from the sky is exactly in the roof of your house? Well, the impact is very high. Probably if I've received a stone like that, 1 meter, boom, my house will be destroyed. Impact is very high. But the probability, no, the probability is very low. Then at the end, I could try to describe the effect of the risk in terms of the risk exposure, which is just to use impact times probability. In the case of the meteorite from the sky, what? The impact is 10 minus, no, the impact is very high, but the probability is time minus 10. Then maybe the exposure is not very high. And that is the reason that nobody's worried about that. It happens, it's a problem, but yeah, I can't forget it. Then at the end, I have here several types of things. Obviously, if you have a low risk, low impact, I'm sorry, and low probability, but it is not relevant. I can discard it. And note here, it is very important, is 80% of probability, and the risk is the impact is very high. Then I need to pay attention to that. And to pay attention to that means that I need to now to create some kind of actions, to define some kind of actions to reduce the probability or to reduce the impact. Let me use the same example. If I have a problem for that, I could reinforce my roof, put in another set of concrete there to avoid the impact. I'm reducing that. It's expensive, for sure. I need to pay for another type of roof. But in case of the risk, I will have less impact. Or to reduce the probability. Well, the probability is a typical case, not in the case of meteorites, because it could be everywhere. But imagine with earthquakes. Well, one possibility is just to move myself to another country with less probability of earthquakes. This is the typical way of action. Then you need to do that. And then you need to write mitigation plans for the selective risks. You need to know exactly what should be the elements of these mitigation plans based on these Ikawa diagrams, and then to make responsible for that, to allocate budgets, to establish a set of milestones, even over time, to recalculate, to recompute the exposures. This is the this is the type of fence that we as engineers, in my case, are usually incorporating into the management of any risky projects, basically innovation projects. And then it implies a continuous interaction between the group of people devoted to risk management with the people working in the project development and management, because obviously these are not totally isolated group of people. We need to work together. In eBrains, we're working hundreds of people working in the project. But we haven't a situation like that. And then every research group is working in this way from the risk management, I'm saying, from the risk management perspective, as a totally independent unit. That may be in the future. We are working for eBrains as a professional set of services to be offered to the whole community over the world. We need to think in a different way. That is the situation. Then, with this basis, and then just to use my last 10 minutes here, let me explain something that yesterday, at the end of the day, remember, you say, but we were interested to know more how to use part of the funding possibilities from Horizon Europe. Well, you know, this figure. I'm sure that you have seen this figure many times. It's just the structure of the structure of the program of Horizon Europe, where we have here the civil part of the program. This is the defense part, the defense funds. We're not working now in this field. But be careful, because if you follow DARPA project, DARPA is the research agency in the United States from defense, and then they are paying a lot of projects based on neuro implants, etc. No, then maybe in the future we need to pay attention to that, but not today. Okay, this is, and this is Euratom, just for nuclear energy. Well, at these parts there are three main pillars, and then let me explain here this pillar 3. The name is Innovative Europe, where we have here 3 elements that correspond to the idea or the concepts which are closer to the innovation management part of eBrains or HBP. Here they are, from one side, the European Institute of Innovation and Technology is something that exists today with several kicks. In fact, we have started the cooperation, the exchange of information with one of the knowledge and innovation communities, which is EIT Health, to see at what extent we could join forces for something in the future. Another one is the European Innovation Ecosystems. It's basically the possibility to connect different innovation ecosystems at the regional level or at the national level, and to have a European one. And then it's also maybe relevant for the future. And then the last component of this pillar 3 is very relevant because it's a new one. Well, new one. Not everything is new, but here the European Innovation Council. It is the name is also the name was decided to make the same type of concept that the European Research Council. This European Research Council is for research. This European Innovation Council is for innovation. What are the main components here? Well, it's support of innovation, trying to cover from early stage with the basic ideas coming from basic research projects to enter into the market with the disrupted ideas, to the possibility to scale up one company that exists today. And then, due to that, they have identified 3 main elements. One is the Pathfinder, which is just how to convert the breakthroughs results in science projects in something that could appear at the end in the market as a disruptive innovation. Remember that innovation should be in the market. If not, it's not an innovation. Another component here is the transition process. Well, the idea is to turn not the excellent science, but you need to have something more. You need to have a technology that maybe is running, not too much, not totally mature, but you need to do that with as a result of a previous science project. And maybe this should be the situation we have here in HBP in several cases. And then again, to mature more the technology. And then the accelerator is when you have now in the market with the startup, and then you need to scale up, maybe to offer services for the rest of the world. At the end, the technology markets are global markets. And then they are providing also a set of business acceleration services to support that for the companies, for the ideas that will be funded here. Then they have proposed Pathfinder have a part which is open, bottom up, everything, or is just to a specific for specific challenges. Awareness, insight, tools to measure and stimulate activity in brain tissue. Whoa, close to us. Emerging technology in cell and gene therapy. Novel route to green hydrogen, engineered living materials. Well, maybe related to us. Well, this is the challenges they have in the first work program. Maybe they will change in the future. And then, for instance, the Pathfinder challenges have 132 millions for proposal 4 millions, etc. They have opened and they will close the call at the end of October. This is an opportunity. In some cases, where we have something disruptive, at least from our point of view, that could be necessary to inject additional money, not to create more concepts, but to mature these concepts. The second one is the transition. Again, here, they have decided to put as a priority for the transition challenges. Here there is an open way, but this is the challenges, the focused area, on medical technology and medical devices. Maybe. And here you could see that the goal is to mature the results. You will start with TRL 3 or TRL 4, typically the results of one previous research project, and then at the end, you need to go to 5, 6. It's not in the market, yeah, but with implementable commercialization strategy, with a clear roadmap to the market. And here again, they are providing contribution for 2.5 million. From my knowledge, some of you are thinking in using this transition call, well, to cover the idea of maturing things and putting things closer to the market. And finally, there is an investment component in the acceleration phase with something which is new. That this fund would provide money for the company. Here, the company is necessary to create the company. And then it's also very relevant because the first time the European Union could have a minority ownership in that company, 10 to 25%. It's a minority. They cannot control the company with this percentage of shares. But it means that now they are not only putting a grant to do everything. No. It will become part of your shareholders structure. And this is very relevant. Then we in the UPM innovation team, we can support you working together. We cannot write the proposal. It is your responsibility in any of these things, but we can support them by interacting with the research groups that are in preparing the proposal. And that was the main goal at the end, to put HBP results into the market. We will start now with exploitation plans, because at the end, exploitation plans will provide the basis. We know today, what are you thinking on? And then we will start now with a detailed discussion with you in order to know at what extent part of the exploitation plans could benefit from the from EEC calls. That's my last slide. Then we are ready to discuss with proposals on the ideas to be submitted, to discuss with them what should be the product, the process, the service, what is the maturity level, what should be the bottlenecks that we have to do a risk management here, etc., to analyze market opportunities. In case of spin-offs, we could also help in analyzing what should be the role played by the spin-off, and maybe the research groups are working together, and then even to review the proposals to EIC calls. Then here, this is an offer, because at the end it will depend on your interest. But that's all from my side. Then I don't know if you have any questions. You have the documents, and then you have time to read them in detail. But anyway, as we said yesterday, we are totally open to receive, if not now immediately, well, and next days, any kind of call or email, and then we can discuss it in detail. Any comment, any question here? Is everything clear? Patricia, now it's more clear what we can do for you.
Yeah, I guess yes.
Okay. Then that's all from my side. Then Guillermo, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
But I understand that you will use your own slides, no?
Yes.
But just to facilitate the movement from one slide to another. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Gonzalo.
Thank you.
Okay, well, can you see the screen? Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, we will start now with the second part of the course that will consist of two very different blocks. First of all, we will be spending a little bit more on the business intelligence that Gonzalo has already explained. Just into directions. One is the foresight specific tool. Another one is the technology road mapping. That these are two tools that Gonzalo has already mentioned in the business intelligence part. And secondly, we will see the IP strategies regarding mainly the software protection, because it's one of the main results in HBP, but we will, in any case, give an overview of any IP rights aspect that it is important that you are aware. So let's start with technology foresight. Well, Wells was a science fiction writer in the last century, and he, as a science fiction professional or writer, he was very interested in looking to the future. And it is something that not many people know, that the future can be used in practical way in the academic environment, but also in the industrial environment. Many people working in big companies are actually using the future to planify, to organize their long-term programs. So, well, at that time, 1932, this writer, Wells, British writer, was mentioning the possibility of having, or not only history professor, but only also future professors. It is something that is not really, that is why we have included in this part of the session, because it's not really a discipline that it is very much delivered in universities and so on. So, but this is something interesting, because it helps you to understand where we are and where we are going. Technology terms in this particular case, but technology foresight can be also useful for another kind of foresight in general, for another kind of domains apart from technology. Let's see the origins of this discipline. Well, you have at the right part a handbook. Now we are editing another handbook on technology foresight, but it is the more comprehensive manual for technology foresight that exists nowadays in the world. The initials, the origins of this discipline came from the military area. The U.S. military planning was made with techniques that are also nowadays used for other purposes, for industrial planning and so on. So the technology, military technology was very much in the origins of this discipline. The term foresight emerged in the UK, in the Spear University, and it was the first time that foresight was trying to be connected and to be used not for military purposes, but in connection with innovation. So this is the first time that this discipline was applied to technology innovation in the UK. And what is foresight? Well, foresight is first of all, should be participative, should have a lot of interaction with different stakeholders. You need, of course, to use the future. It's important that the foresight is not to predict or to try to understand what is going to happen. The point is to use this kind of visions to give practical recommendations and to take practical decisions today. So you are using actually the future as an instrument to make something practical and very focused on the present decisions. So you can see here different definitions, and the Commission also acknowledge and use very much the technology foresight and foresight in general to make this kind of policies formulation. For example, the Horizon Europe and the European Innovation Council that Gonzalo was discussing some minutes ago, to arrive to this kind of decisions along these last years. There have been a lot of workshops, different instruments, not only foresight, but foresight was one of the instruments that the Commission used to decide if they will eventually put money in this area or another. This, for example, when he was explaining that medical devices, for example, was one of the areas that was going to be funded with the Pathfinder or transition. It's not a decision taken by a small group of people joining in small rooms in Brussels. No, it's the consequence of a lot of discussions around future scenarios in some cases, many cases, together with other instruments. But foresight is very much used in Europe, in the European Commission. That is, here you have the reference to, if you like the discipline and you want to know more, you can Google Foresight European Commission, and you will find that there is a competence center for foresight. Also, the Joint Research Center, that it is not in the European Innovation Council part of the Horizon Europe. It is in the societal challenges and the industrial challenges that Gonzalo presented in his slide. In this block of challenges, the Joint Research Center is embedded there, and they are working they are very focused on utilizing foresight for this kind of informing the policies, the policymakers in the Commission. So this is a very, it is foresight to use in companies, but also it is very much used in the policy formulation and the policy environment. It is private uses and public uses as well of foresight. So when we talk about different kinds of instruments, Gonzalo mentioned some of them in the business intelligence, but if we see this intelligence in a broader sense, not only for business, but as I mentioned, for another purposes, more public-oriented purposes, for policy, etc., we can see a wide range of techniques, of which we are going to see today road mapping and foresight. But for you to understand the context of these instruments, to provide intelligence to either to the companies or to the Commission or to any kind of international, global institutions, etc., in any kind of from these different perspectives, you have a range of techniques. Some of them are looking to the past to take decisions. For example, when we make a benchmarking, we are analyzing what is happening, what has happened in different countries, in different sectors, different actors, in different situations, but we are looking to the past. And when we make ex-post policy evaluation, what we are doing is to measure the impact of a policy that has been already implemented. And after 2 or 3 years, or in any case, after the policy has been implemented, that is only the moment when we are able to measure the consequences and the benefits or the withdrawals of this policy. So in these cases, we are looking to the past to take decisions. You can see also the trends, forecasting, prediction, and interpolations at the top and at the bottom of the slide. That also is looking both to the past or to the future. When you are making a trend analysis, you need to see behind, to see where we are from where we are coming, to understand the evolution, for example, of a trend, of a graphic, to forecast the future of this variable. So trends, forecasting, prediction, and interpolation also look to the past. But we have, as you can see here, relatively less known techniques that look for the future instead to the past to take decisions. The first one is horizon scanning, is something similar to technology watch that Gonzalo was explaining. It is trying to detect in the present and emerging things that we believe, according to the different conversations we have with experts, or according to the different signals that we find in the environment on this specific topic, we can realize that something is happening, something is emerging, like a plant when it's growing for the first time, when the seed is becoming a plant, is something that that gives you some hints, and you can take some decisions according to this situation, and this implies to look around. That is why it is called horizon, in horizon, understood as to look around to the rest of international initiatives, for example, and to understand what is happening, the competitors, what they are doing, etc. Second is ex ante policy evaluation, second technique to look to the future. ex-ante policy evaluation is an exercise also very much used by the European Commission. That what basically what it's doing is to well, before implementing a policy, you have to formulate it, and you have to try to estimate what will be the impact of a policy before being implemented, according to different well, there are specific procedures to do that. But well, one of them is to put this policy formulated in front of different panel of experts to understand what will be the consequences of this policy. So this is ex-ante policy evaluation. Technology impact assessment is something similar, but and is very much related with our work in eBrains, because it tries to understand what will be the benefits of this technology before being finished. So it's something that obviously we need to do when sometimes naturally, when we are developing something technologically speaking, we are making progress in a technology, and we need to know what will be the real benefits of these technologies. Then we have road mapping, that it is, as you can see, the length of the arrows are the long, the period or the short or medium or long term on which this technique is useful. Road mapping is longer term planning, and we will see later what is the details of the technique. So I will not stop here. Trend analysis, as you can see, past or future, but in any case, we can make interpolation or predictions for a very, very long term. And finally, foresight. The foresight is the longest period vision. Foresight is normally utilized to take decisions for the present, as I told you before, but with a long-term vision of 15, 20, even some foresight exercises could even take 50 or well, in some cases, but I don't believe very much in this exercise, 100 years and so on. But the more practical ones and the period that normally is more used is around 15 or 20 years. What makes foresight different from other planning instruments, strategic planning instruments? Well, more participation. We need to put on board a lot of different stakeholders with a systematic analysis of who is going to participate in them. Long-term dynamics, forward-looking. It's useful to build capacities, because these interactions allows you to interact, to learn, and to promote very much the knowledge transfer between different participants. So you build capacities, you make networking. Very importantly, legitimacy of decisions. Why the Commission is using so much foresight? Well, they are using foresight. One of the reasons is because the more people that you involve in this kind of exercise, the more legitimacy have the decisions that this group will suggest, because it's a kind of democratic decision. It's a kind of democratic way of making policies in the Commission. So if you involve in a policy formulation, for example, in this Horizon Europe, if you finally can demonstrate that thousands of people in different foresight and impact assessment or any kind of instruments, participative instruments, if you demonstrate that there have been a lot of stakeholders representing a huge volume of persons in Europe to take decisions and to contribute to this policy, you will finally have more legitimacy to defend and to apply this policy and to prevent any further problems or claims about this policy. It is something that it is really made bottom up with the collaboration of plenty of persons. So that is one important reason to use foresight in the policy environment, and also in companies, because if a company, private company, organize this kind of participative workshops to plan and to define the next 2 years programs, for example, you will have also the legitimacy of the staff, of the people working in your company, and you will make more democratic decisions. Another characteristic of foresight, in contrast with strategic planning, is the rational and the divergent combination. So foresight has a very strong component of creativity, because we are trying to use the future. Creative thinking is needed there, but we also try to give these creative ideas, to give and to add to them the rational and the practical decisions and the practical reasons to take or not, well, to consider or not a creative idea, to avoid crazy decisions, or to avoid crazy ideas to solve a problem, for example. You use also rationality. Well, foresight as well is useful to capture trends with evidence from people and weak signals that we can, sometimes in foresight you use material previously analyzed or gathered or collected from the environment, weak signals, and to put them in front of experts and participants in the workshops to capture trends. Well, this foresight exercise also helps to enlighten directors and other people in the company, and one also important characteristic. Not always future scenarios are used, but normally, well, in most of the occasions, future scenarios are built to make these foresight projects. So, and we will see in a minute different examples of scenarios of projects where I have participated, and I think that it's very interesting to know. Understand what makes foresight different from other kind of business intelligence tools. We can classify in these four blocks. When you have, for example, to look to the top left block, when you have a phenomenon, sorry, a phenomenon that it is in reality, the phenomena it is there. It is moderately developed. It exists, phenomena, and it is more or less visible. We are talking about technology watch. We are just identifying signals here and there, and we can take decisions on that. We can see evident and obvious trends in the markets, and then we are in this part of this business intelligence, consolidated trends and practices. When we have something that is not so obvious, they are a little bit developed. The phenomena is there as well, but well, it is less visible, and we can understand that it is something that is just a very short signal of something that is happening, and then we are talking about horizon scanning. But at the bottom of the diagram, when we have, for example, a phenomenon that is really happening, but we cannot see it, the most obvious example is big data analysis. You know that in big data, we have hidden in this data, we have probably a lot of information that is very difficult to capture and to understand. but the phenomena is there, but it is very low visible. So we are in the domain of big data analysis. So foresight, it is a technique that try to identify things that are very less developed, and at the same time, in parallel, they are not visible at all, because we are entering in the area of intuitions, insights, experts' beliefs, experts' thoughts about something. That's why foresight needs so much of the people. Needs experts. Sometimes you need citizens. Sometimes you need only academics, only, well, etc. So foresight, it is trying to understand something that it is really difficult. Something is not visible, and something that we acknowledge that is still probably only an idea. Is something very, very with a very, very low visibility. That is I think it's an interesting way of understanding how we can deal with these techniques, and how we can understand the use of signals and future future insights. So for technology foresight, we can use a lot of methods. Some of them are qualitative, and others are quantitative. So, well, here we will just focus on road mapping and foresight with the scenario workshops. We will see a little bit about the real scenario workshop for the use of foresight. But as you can see, in a foresight project, that in some cases could last for years, 1 or 2 years. In some cases, only 5 or 4 months. But in any case, during these projects, normally you use a combination of methods, not only one. For example, you can make foresight exercises or projects with a combination of scenarios, but you can provide participants with a previous pattern analysis, for example, or with bibliometries, or benchmarking, etc. There are a lot of techniques and methods that can be applied in foresight. One interesting example, just as a curiosity to how to make a future scenario. It is very simple way to make scenarios of future. These scenarios are the ones that are discussed in foresight projects. Well, for example, you can say, well, let's list the key drivers of a problem, of something that, about which the foresight is going to be working. So, for example, TIPSI is the acronym of technology, economic, environmental, political, social, and ethical dimensions. That is the TIPSI. List key drivers, TIPSI, for example. And then you can, for example, to say, well, in terms of technology, I will write a variable. In terms of environmental or economics or social, we will put different drivers. Here you have some of them. New rationale for societal progress, relative share of emerging economies in the world, macroeconomic stability, and so on. And then you put different columns, and in each of these columns, you put different levels or status of this variable. For example, well, global balance of power that you can see in the fourth row. Well, we can put in the 3 columns. One is the very interesting and impactful democracy in the world, but in the middle we could put something that it is not so democracy, and then in the right you put an isolated democratic Europe. No democracy in Europe, for example. You put the 2 extremes and the middle point of this variable. And then it is as to write a scenario about this. You can choose a different status of each variable for one scenario. If you, for example, scenario 1 here, jobs and growth, is the combination of very strong efforts in jobs and growth in the first row, but also a continued growth of share of emerging economies. Emerging economies is they are contributing to this growing. But for example, you can see that the scenario is taking the third column, or fourth, the left column. There is a very important good jobs and growth value, but in the other hand, we have a lot of instability in Europe, and the rest of variables you can see there that give rise to a scenario 1. The same with the scenario 2 and scenario 3. And then you can, in this way, quite interesting, simple, and sometimes funny, you can create specific scenarios, hypothetical scenarios for the future. So this example, for example, this exercise, for example, gave rise to these scenarios in a project that was the beta project, Forward Visions, for the European research area, on which I used for my doctoral thesis. And we can see here that we prepare 4 scenarios in Europe. One of them was the global market coordination for jobs and growth. Normally in Foresight, you use drawings, pictures, videos, storytelling of this scenario, trying to make something attractive for participants to discuss on it. And then, for example, we made some videos on that. You have there the links where you can see the videos. But the first scenario was very much competition between companies and countries. The second one was very similar as the Horizon Europe project now on societal challenges. Just focus the world, or Europe in this case, was just focusing on specific challenges, very much delimited, and they were not so much a competition, but also a fight to find solution to these challenges. The third one, public participation for human well-being, it is a scenario on which people first priority is their own well-being, and Europe is trying to address these priorities of people through different consultations, citizen panels, citizen consultations, voting, etc. And the fourth one is a scenario on which the main priority is the sustainability, the ecological and green world sustainability. So this, as I told you at the beginning of the Foresight explanation, these kind of scenarios are just instruments to make decisions to the present. Normally, as I told you, it's finally it needs to be used to make practical decisions and to give recommendations to the board of directors if it is a company, or to the European commissioners if we are making a Foresight project for the Commission. And then you are, at the end of the day, you are giving advice, very specific recommendations on something. And then normally we use interesting, attractive recommendations. Here, even though you have very beautiful drawings, the messages are there. These specific sentences are, each of them could give rise to different discussions with the Commission, because we are proposing something very practical, but at the same time, very attractive to capture the attention of the policymakers. The same happened with this another area. As you can understand, that is the final and the cheer on the cake of a very long project with a lot of people working on that, and long projects, and normally also expensive projects. Well, that is to understand what is foresight. Well, you can see here that normally people discuss on the scenarios. You can see the scenarios here, for example, the scenarios that I have already mentioned, these 4 scenarios. We use different analysis. That is the composition of participant workshops. Normally we have people from academia. We have people really working in this case in the European research area instruments, policymakers, industry actors, well, a lot of stakeholders. I have put here a very interesting diagram. Well, here you have also the academic level of people participating normally in these workshops, and here that is the composition of our affected dominant actors in the project. To know what is this, you can see here that the power, legitimacy, and urgency diagram is very, very interesting to classify people around you, stakeholders. That is something that comes from the 1997 from Mitchell. Is the salience model. Very, very quickly, I will tell you, because sometimes you can use in your work when you want to collect somebody else, a group of people in a workshop, for example, that you are organizing or something. You have people that have the power to decide. Sorry, the power to decide. They have, for example, policymakers can change things. They have the capacity to implement new rules, or a director of a company. You have people that have the legitimacy of something because they are affected with the decisions. And you have people that have the urgency of things to be changed. For example, if you have somebody that it has the power and has the legitimacy to, because it's affected, someone is affected by a problem and also can change the problem, is a dominant person or a dominant organization, for example. If you have the legitimacy of something because you are really affected by the problem, and you are also in a hurry you need that this problem will be solved as soon as possible, but you have not the power to change things. You are just in a very not very good situation because you depend on others that have the power to solve the problem. For example, if you have urgency and power, well, you are dangerous in the sense of this model. You are a dangerous stakeholder because as soon as you will be affected by the problem, you will be definitive, because you are like in a latency, let's say latency situation. You can change the things. You want to change the things, but as soon as the problem will affect you directly, you will be a definitive stakeholder. And the dominant one that is at the top of the diagram is the combination of somebody that has the power, for the legitimacy, but it is not yet in a hurry to solve it. When you are, and obviously we have another dormant, for example, dormant stakeholder is something that is just a policymaker that is not working in this area. He has not or she has not the urgency to solve it, but it has the power and so on. So the definitive stakeholders are the ones that have the three factors on them. And that's why in workshops like Foresight workshops or any kind of event that you will organize in the future, is very interesting to make an analysis of the people that will participate in these workshops. And this, for this purpose is useful, this kind of model and this kind of theory. I like it very much because and I have used it very much. It's practical, really. So I decided to include it in this presentation. Well, road mapping. Let's go to this part of the presentation. Well, road mapping is a technique that helps, in contrast with Foresight, that use scenarios, and it is more big recommendations, sometimes general recommendations to do something very much oriented to the policy formulation. Road mapping adds, and it's very important to understand that roadmaps needs time. You need to put a program time. That is why we put here a clock, because it is, you need to define all the actions one after the other and to cover a timeline on which you want to implement something. It's very much used by high-tech industries. Well, the road mapping is, you can see here the sectors. It is very much used in software, energy, science, etc. Well, it also makes use of experts, as you can see in the picture. It is used by both, like Foresight, by companies and by the public spheres. But it is Foresight more used, let's say, for policy formulation, and road mapping is more used in the private sector. That is the first technology roadmap made by Motorola of a machine. I don't know if you can more or less know what is the product that it is representing this roadmap. Well, it is a roadmap that it is from a car radio, the radios that were made in the 80s. But it's a roadmap where you can see that Motorola was proposing different actions from in a range of years of 10 years in the 80s. What are the concepts behind the roadmaps? Well, roadmaps normally are made in layers. You have here a first block, the green one, that is all related with the technology, research, science resources, all the research that is needed, exploration of ideas and research development that is needed to make a product or a service, which comes in the second layer, product, service, or systems. That is the development part. At the top of the layers, you have the visions, the long-term visions for the market, for the business. Anything that it is strategic goes in the upper layer. So from left to right, you have the time, and then we need to put here the actions, all of them connected. So it's very important that the actions, the nodes in the roadmap are connected. So if you see in this part, actually some in many cases roadmaps are made from this corner to this corner. So we first understand when, so to decide the timeline, when, why we want to do something. So that is the vision. Somehow that is a pull approach. It is to understand what is the market asking to us. It is the pull, market pull, in contrast with another strategy that is technology push. Here we are understanding first a vision, where we want to go, when, why, here, and then we have to cascade. We have to ask ourselves question. Well, to arrive to this vision, we need to make some product, service, and system. When? Obviously before. And then we start to fill the roadmap, trying to answer the question, what is needed in terms of product, service, or system to arrive to this vision. And then you put this layer. And then similarly, we go down and fill the first layer, understand, trying to give answer to the question how we are going to produce this kind of services here, kind of product or services. How? Well, we need some technology advances. We need to make, for example, more to invest more in education, for example, in the company, for people to be ready to develop something next year. And we need, I don't know, to buy a new machine that help us to investigate better in this product that will be in 2 years will be developed, because this product will help us to arrive to the vision. So that is the concept behind the roadmaps. You have to start from the top right and to finish, and trying to cascade to think on the kind of actions and activities that you need to implement to arrive to this vision. There is plenty of graphical representation of roadmaps. Normally, all of them have the 3 layers concept behind, but the representation could be in multiple layers, in bars, table, graphs. Normally, there is quite a big freedom to visualize the roadmap in different ways. Here's an example that is a roadmap for fuel cells. That is another roadmap for the Russian Foresight for 2013. Then you can see that, for example, the Russian people are very, very good in road mapping, and they use a very interesting combination of different analysis. This roadmap is using different techniques all together: market analysis, product analysis, price, technology chain analysis, and so on. Here, very interesting is the roadmap of Graphene, our twin brother project, the flagship Graphene. Well, that is a roadmap that they made in 2020, in 2012 year, trying to identify what will be the graphene products in the future, with a vision of 23 to 33. So you can see here that they are connecting the vision, the energy composites, electronics health, for example, around in 2033. They connect that with different milestones in the middle, both for materials, for components. Well, very interesting roadmap. That is another example of a roadmap for graphene as well, where they identify and put symbols to represent different sectors on which they are interested, and why different graphene developments could be used, and why and how could be used in these different sectors. And the roadmaps can also be used for market decisions. So, well, in the timeline, we can't use this kind of exercises to decide if a company, if a project or research group or whatever, technology developers group decide during the timeline, during the horizon period of the roadmap, to decide if we go we develop a higher performance product, or we stay with the same low performance because we want to avoid, for example, the competition that where in this case firm 1 and firm 2 are. So the firm 3 here has decided to wait to avoid to enter in this competitive fighting, and this kind of roadmaps also are used to make some market decisions. So conclusions on these two tools that has been very, very broadly explained. So while foresight, it is useful to discuss on future situation, future context. You have opportunities to be creative and to propose radical ideas. Normally in foresight workshops, you are explicitly asked or requested to to provide to the group any idea without any limit, and to be even though you find that this idea could be crazy, but you need to be creative at the end of the day. So while foresight is promoting these kind of things, obviously these radical ideas are then afterwards by the foresight analysts and people that are working with these insights. Obviously, you then cluster ideas in more creative, more radical, more crazy ideas, and other ones that are more practical, and then you arrive to a conclusion. And that is the way to give recommendations to the sponsor of the project. So, but in any case, it is always requested to be creative. And road mapping, on the other hand, is more a complementary tool of foresight to make rational decisions and to put a timeline on that decisions. Both disciplines help organizations to discover where they have some weaknesses, for example, or to to identify or to realize that the objectives that they have should be changed, for example. So it is something that the own processes, not the result, but the processes themselves are useful to and help the organization to cover some weaknesses. Well, obviously you have understood, I think, that the presentation gives you a very strong message that these exercises normally are made in cooperation with others. These are very participative exercises. Improves the coordination, the management activities. The roadmaps in particular needs to be monitored and changed because they are daily tools. It is not something that it is completed and that's it. That is something that helps organizations to supervise their planning and their program. It is obviously also foresight a very good tool for networking and to connect with other people in the area. And both of them, but especially road mapping, are very good communication tools, are very much used for communication purposes, because normally they are very attractive. They give for example, potential investors, stakeholders that are interested in the work you do. They normally appreciate very much that you give them a roadmap, a visual program of what are you doing in the next year. So it is a very interesting communication tool, both of them, but especially roadmap. So well, I finish here the part, the more let's say, a part that it is taking about is addressing creative things and business intelligence. Now we are going to start the IP part of the presentation that is much more related with the work of patents that we are normally using in HBP. If you have any questions in this regard to foresight and road mapping, I think that is a good moment to do that. Otherwise, we can leave it for the end of the session. Do you have any questions on this?
I have a short question.
Yes.
Do you think that for the roadmap and also for the technology foresight, would it be good that we could perhaps use those tools already in the beginning to help for example, the people in our work package with exploitation plans to see, monitor exactly possible vision that they have for their technologies, or is it maybe too early then?
Well, it's very good question. Well, first, let's say first that the HBP has a foresight activity in Work Package 9. But well, we are talking here about technology foresight, and Work Package 9 is more related with foresight for ethical, responsible innovation aspects and so on, societal impact and so on. It is very interesting, but it's another kind of foresight. We are more focusing on technology. Well, first of all, in your specific phase of development, you know that in HBP we are now, most of the groups are in trial 3, 4, 5. So 7 years ago, or 8 years ago, the project started, and now we are in this process. So it is probably too late to make a foresight exercise on which or from which you will understand what is the new project to do. If you are focusing on your current development, for your current development, it is more interesting to produce a roadmap, because it will help you to scale from the TRL 4, 5 to the last levels of maturity. But it is also, on the other hand, it is very important as well to, if you want to organize a kind of foresight, probably not very ambitious, but a future-oriented foresight project. It is interesting for the years that are coming after HBP, for example, because you will
so for new ideas.
Yeah, new ideas, and ideas that will probably connect very well with the development that you are on which you are working nowadays. So it is very interesting to know what are you going to do in 3 or 4 years once that you have your tool market ready. But so my recommendation is that use foresight with a long perspective for new products for the future of your group after HBP in the context of e-brains, for example, and use road mapping for very specific steps to be taken in your actual work.
Okay, yes, thank you.
In any case, if you need to do something in this regard, don't hesitate to contact me.
Okay, to get some tools or templates, it would be nice. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm here again, Guillermo.
Okay. Any other question? Well, let's go then to the following part of the session, the IP strategies, and in particular, very much software protection. Let's see what time it is now. We have half an hour for that. Okay. Well, let's start by saying that exploitation, protection, and ownership, as you can imagine, are very much related. You cannot protect something if you are not the owner, obviously. So you need to be owner of something or co-owner of something to protect that. And to exploit it, as I told you before, yesterday, you can exploit something that on which you have the rights to exploit it. So you have this asset, this technology asset, you have it protected. So these three concepts are obviously very much related. The World Intellectual Property Organization is a global institution that defines intellectual property as unique value-adding creations of the human intellect. So, well, you have the WIPO web page to understand more on the discipline of IP, but in any case, it is very important to highlight that the importance of focusing on something unique. What kind of IP, intellectual property modalities we have? We have different sorts of protections or things to be protected. Patents protect inventions, products or processes. Copyright, on which it is included any, for example, art creation, literature, artworks, software as well, and it is automatically recognized after you create this piece of art or this software. It is the copyright gives you the rights of these kind of things automatically without any kind of patenting procedure. So it is very interesting to know that. Database rights protect data sets as well, with the condition that these databases are systematically arranged, organized. So it is something that needs to be the result of a very systematic process, the database. Trade secrets protect any confidential knowledge. Designs protect the shape and the form and the aesthetics of objects. And finally, trademarks protect, well, the marks of any product that guarantees you that you can take advantage of the reputation and the quality of the service that you offer. But be aware that while some of these 6 modalities are very clearly present in HBP, other ones aren't. So we will focus, obviously we will not talk about industrial design, for example, design protects or trademarks, because it's not really applicable in HBP, or very little applicable. Conditions to get a patent. You need to have something new. You need the novelty criteria fulfilled. You need that the thing to be patented should have a very clear industrial application. And it should be also something that it is not obvious for a person with standard skills in the field. These three conditions are necessary to get a patent on your work. Well, here very quickly, because I acknowledge that it is a dense test, but it's important to know that something is new according to the patent law. Something is new when this product or service or process has not been disseminated before to the public. Public disclosure assumes that enough information is given to a person that is able to reproduce that. So when you disclose something with information that can be used by this specialized people or team, you are avoiding the possibility of patenting. If you share your technology with another people, for example, for businesses or with lawyers or within your team, that is not considered a disclosure. In any case, when you talk with a company, you should sign confidentiality agreements to avoid that eventually the data or the information that you have on this technology will be revealed to the wide public. So to avoid public disclosure, it's recommended not to publish articles or to publish in journals and conference, etc., before you fill the patent application. But it's important that you to be aware of disclosing aspects. Before negotiating with companies, it is interesting that you consider the possibility of signing a non-disclosure agreement. Sometimes you can decide not to sell. For example, some companies decide to sell something on which the technology is hidden, but in that case, it could be considered as well that you are revealing the technology because for example, a component of a car, of a motor, and then you can't disclose this information because you are just selling the component inside of a bigger technology. Some other people try to if you realize that technology it will have a very short timeline. Normally, when you feel that this product will be sold or exploited for a not very long time, then it's better to reject the idea of patenting and just decide to introduce yourself in the market as soon as possible and to get the advantage of this introduction before the competitors. And then some people make no efforts to protect the technology. And well, that implies different consequences. For example, the competitors will learn very soon what you are doing, and they can, for example, if you have not published that publicly, they could take advantage of that and patent in their name. For example, it is a copy of something that it is not yet in the public domain, but you have revealed in some way, and they can first and be the first on patenting. So you have to be very careful about this kind of steps taken in regard to your technology. So this public disclosure is something that has to be very much reflected before deciding to patent something. And in HBP, we have a lot of examples in this regard. The patent rights gives you the territoriality, exclusivity, and time limitation rights. In general, patents are working for 20 years from the filing date of application. You can ask for national application, European application, or international application, the PCT. In any case, what is needed in the case of European application, you can get the granted for all the European countries, but you have to maintain the grants individually in each country. But you can get the grants of this patent for all the European countries. But the PCT at the international level, is important to know that when you apply for a PCT, you are just applying for that, but you need afterwards to go country by country, making the real application. That is, it is useful for a large number of countries, because more than 150 countries are part of this agreement, the PCT, but it's not a granting procedure. The final decision to grant you a patent remains at the national level in the different national offices. reasons to patent. Well, avoid the copying limitations, give you the rights for exploiting this technology, obviously. Avoid or limit the commercial use of a solution by third parties. Increase the value of your company, intellectual capital, to facilitate the internationalization of technology, enable transferring of technology and opportunities for exploitation, promote innovation, provide advantages to the organization, to get a better position to ask for capital financing, because well, the IP rights on different technologies in your organization is an important value asset for you as a business. Access to new technologies and markets through cross licensing, just to using the license of somebody else. You can use them, and in change you can give them the license of your technology to other parties. So you exchange both rights, and you can get access to new technologies. Provide legal mechanisms to react to other people activity in regards to this technology. Obviously, for communicative and competitive image of your organization, is good to have the patent of your technology. You can decide not to publish the information. Well, it's cheap. Prevent others to patent the same technology, but you have not the rights. So you can decide, well, I will not care about patenting. I will publish everything, but well, you have to be aware the information will be revealed to competitors. The trade secret is cheap. Well, but you have the risk of the secret to be revealed, and obviously you have also to maintain the contract after 1 or 2 years. You have to renovate the agreement with this party, and you have also the risk of being imitated. And then you can decide to do nothing. But if you don't do anything, you have not exclusivity. And if you have not published, you have not at least said to the public that you are doing that, and competitors learn what you are doing and they try to patent, you cannot demonstrate that you, at least in the first part at the top of the screen, publish information. At least you cannot patent, but others neither can. But if you do nothing, you are assuming the risk that somebody else will understand what you are doing, and they will ask for the patent, and they will have the rights to do it, because you cannot demonstrate that it was in the public domain before. So it is very important to balance what kind of strategy you will follow in this regard. Related to software protection, we will see very quickly what are the modalities that you have to protect the software programs. The authorship of the software is automatically recognized, as I mentioned before, automatically, because it's an intellectual capital. Then you can protect that with non-disclosure agreements. You can register in notary, for example, and you have also licensing bodies, non-profit bodies like Creative Commons and other kind of instruments that are ready in the software world, where you can with which you can protect and give a license of your software. But it is also recognized in some cases software as a patent only if the technology, the software produce a technical effect on hardware, or in a machine. So when a software is intimately linked to something physical, it could be eventually considered a patent. It's important to know that. In the US, for example, a software invention may be patentable if they produce a tangible and useful effect. So not, although in general terms, software cannot be protected, in some cases that are very, very much linked to a machine or a mechanism or physical device, it could be protected. Well, license for software needs to have a permission. Well, you can see here terms, conditions, obligations, warranty, liability, user rights, geographical restrictions, well, etc. That is the kind of information that could go with the software license. And what kind of software protections we have? Well, we have the public. Well, just we need to understand the two options: public domain and non-public domain. That is the copyright. And when we have also hybrids, but public domain. In the public domain, you have to explicitly say that you have to say to the public that you disclaim the copyright and other rights on it. Otherwise, you will have the copyright, because the copyright is automatically granted to you by the fact that, but just because you have made this kind of things. Picture, an imaging, a drawing, an artwork, or a software, you are automatically recognized as an owner of this product, this asset. But if you want to put it explicitly, you want to discard this kind of rights that you have automatically, then you have to say that publicly. So in these cases, you put explicitly the software in the public domain. Otherwise, you are in the non-public domain. It's here. You are in the copyright domain. And then we will see what kind of copyright modalities we have. We have the proprietary software, that is the software for which you need to pay if you want to use it. It's licensed by the holder. You cannot make any changes on that. You cannot distribute it. Of course, you have not the source code. You have not the binary codes. You have nothing. It could be free. Could be you have in some cases not to pay for that. Sometimes you have shareware that is used to that the companies give to you purposely to use in trial and evaluations and to refine and to get a better version of the software. That's a shareware. But in any case, it's something that is very close and it is owned by different companies like Apple, Windows, and so on, McAfee, etc. You have also free software and open software. Free software is a software that users can safely run, adapt, and distribute without any restrictions. Okay. Open source software is a software that is publicly available under a license that gives users the right to study, change, and distribute this software. And when you have both things happening in your case, free and open software allows you to use, copy, study, modify the source codes, because in that cases, with open source, what we want at the end of the day is to have the possibility that people will, by collaboration, will gradually improve the capacities of this software. So you have this kind of modalities. What are the most, the main one is the open source software. What are the characteristics of this? Like Linux, WordPress, VLC, Firefox, is free redistribution of the software. You have the source code. You can have access to the source codes, as I told you before, the effect of that is to have the software inspected and improved by multiple eyes, by many people. That facilitates the software improvement, the personalization of the software. You can also modify and give and provide to the rest of people another kind of license and derived works, depending on the kind of, we'll see in a minute, depending on the kind of license. And then you can see the rest of things: integrity of the author, non-discriminations against persons or groups, against fields, distribution of license, rights, etc. We will see the two kinds, the two modalities of open source: permissive and copyleft. They both license are used very much in the software world. Permissive provides you a royalty-free license to do virtually anything with the source code. You can do whatever you want with the source, with the program. But in contrast, the main difference with the copyleft is that the copyleft modality asks you explicitly to use the same kind of freedom that you have in the software that you receive. If you modify something, or you change, or you improve it, you have to give the same freedom to the rest of people that we will use your modifications. That is to avoid that, because in the permissive modality, you can have people that make modifications to the software and then restrict that, and then put on that these modifications, put a restriction to following users. So then they have, is so permissive that even allows people that modifies the software to put a restriction on this freedom afterwards. So that is why permissive, even being very permissive, is less. It is not. Is less useful than copyleft programs, because copyleft ask to the and obliges the people that make modification to keep this freedom for the future users. That is the main difference between both modalities, permissive and copyleft. Well, examples include Apache, BSD, MIT, etc. in the permissive, and in the copyleft you have these other modalities, general public license. Each of them has a slightly difference between them. Not very. We are not going to enter in this difference now, but it is important to know this difference between copyleft and permissive. That is the main reason, the justification that I have already given. Modifications have to be also covered by copyleft. Copyleft, it is well, a kind of ironic way of calling or calling something that is just the opposite of copyright. So that is the origins of the term copyleft, because it is absolutely the other side of copyright. That copyright gives you the possibility of restricting everything that you want because it's yours, and that is why copyleft was named as that, in opposition to copyright. Well, finally, we will see very quickly some some aspects of HBP regarding ownership. Basically, that it is a long test that I invite you to read more carefully after the course. But in any case, what is important is that any party that is participating in a joint development needs to demonstrate that they have contributed to the results, and the HBP partners can also have the rights to use other HBP partners' results if they demonstrate that they need it for their own development. These kind of things are collected in the grant agreement, but in any case, you have here the most important ones highlighted for you to analyze. Well, there is also background IPs. That is, background technologies are those that are included in the whenever you enter in the consortium and you come to the consortium with something that is already developed by you in the past, and you put you offer to the rest of partners to use that. But in any case, for the rest of partners to use a background technology, this background should be explicitly considered and written in a list of background technologies in the grant agreement. Well, before going to the questions, well, I finish here the part of IP. We'll see. We'll leave the questions to the end. I want to give you an overview of some figures. Yesterday we saw this diagram. So in all these 6 aspects of awareness, technology transfer, engagement, etc., we have got some interesting results. Here you can see that we have already got around 23 exploitation plans because we are still waiting for 2 or 3 of them. We have already 29 technology sheets, 7 market analysis, 3 of them completed, and 4 of them will be completed in the next 2 months. We have made around 21, 24 3L assessments. We are organizing a one solution workshop for the startups. We have launched one national innovation community in Spain. We have incorporated 4 industrial partners through the call. We have launched 1 innovation awards. We have published 3 newsletters and delivered 4 training courses. That is for you to know how, to what extent the use of these different innovation management tools have given rise to different outcomes and results. Well, just an overview of the industrial dialogues that the HBP is having. That is very much related with in this industrial engagement part that you can see in violet color. Here we can see that we are collaborating. We have 8 red points that corresponds to the companies that are being part of the HBP as formal members, and we have some dialogues in different areas of science. We have, for example, in aerobotics, we have 10 dialogues. We have dialogues in microscopy, medical devices, etc. We have also some co-development and exploitation initiatives in Europe. So that is real connections between HBP partners and companies that are happening nowadays. And then we have also, only in Spain by the moment, we have a network of industries, companies, associations that are taking part of the national innovation community. So it's a half networking relationship. Here is an overview of this kind of relations that we have now. A quick overview of exploitation plans received up to now. Here you will find yours, some of your plans. We have received two plans from the Work Package 1, 4 from the Work Package 2, 6 from Work Package 4, 3 from Work Package 5, 3 from Work Package 6, and 1 from Work Package 9. Well, because Work Package 9, although it is not a technology plan, but they have also innovation. So here you can see we are waiting for the Work Package 3. That is for you to know when it is expected to receive an updated plan, we have this calendar. So we have in front of us in the horizon, we have different courses. Probably before summer, we will probably, it's not yet decided, but we will repeat the tutorial course or the exploitation plans course because we need that the different groups will deliver exploitation plans completed or updated plans of the current ones. But in 6 months, we believe that that many other things could be added or changed in the previous plans because things are evolving and technology is evolving and new connections with industries are also happening. So we want to receive by September or probably October the next series of exploitation plans from the different groups. To do that, we encourage you to use the TRL checklist fulfill. So, well, we think that it's a very practical tool to understand what kind of things have not been considered in your development. But in any case, the exploitation plans capture many other things, and it's important that in 2 or 3 months you start thinking the possibility of updating these plans and to make it or make them much more completed or with a better quality than the one that you have already delivered. And related with the market analysis, you see here that we are going to deliver the MIP analysis and the brain startups mapping, European brain startups, before July. Then before August, more or less, or in August, but around these dates, we are going to publish the brain atlas analysis, the NEST analysis, and an analysis of a transversal analysis as well of the HBP tools for pharma. Other analysis will come later before the end of the year, but they are still in discussion. And the training courses, apart from the trial and exploitation course repetition, we are planning to deliver a course on funding, research funding things, and also another one on technology watch and on foresight and other intelligence instruments before the end of the year. And well, I think that's all from my side. I am on time. Thank you very much for attention, and I am open to questions that you may have, either on business intelligence or IP or this last part of the presentation regarding the exploitation plans and so on. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Guillermo. It was, and Gonzalo, it was really good, this course, very informative. I just want to ask for the exploitation plans course in July, if you could send us a bit earlier in advance, because then we can kind of guarantee the presence also of the exploitation plan leaders that are involved. I think that would be very nice to have their participation there as well.
Yeah. Well,
we were waiting for some exploitation plans that we have not received. But and then after that, we need to make an analysis, because the idea for this course is not to explain exploitation plans in general, but to focus on the specific exploitation plans we have received.
Yes.
But that is the idea. And then this course should be more proactive from your side, because you need also to use the time to discuss. Even in some cases, there will be also useful to discuss with other colleagues presenting other exploitation plans, because there are also some cross-cutting issues that could be also useful for everybody. Then we need to decide it on the first week or the maximum second week, before 14th July. You know that
Okay.
magic date in July for this starting.
It will be basically the same course or very similar course to the previous one on exploitation plans. So
Yeah.
on which you have already available the slides in case that you want to anticipate and to read something on that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question? Yes, Cindy.
Yes, so first of all, thank you very much for these 2 days of training. It was super interesting and I have learned a lot. And as you know, I'm working on the risk register and risk management at HBP. And your presentation was quite interesting, and I will probably come back to you, Gonzalo, on the risk register, just to make sure we have captured the right risk, because we have many risks, but maybe not one related to innovation. So maybe I will probably come back to you if we can identify maybe just one risk, just to make sure we are aligned and cover everything.
From my experience, the problem in many cases is that, well, you have a clear idea about the possible risk, but you have not made a good analysis about the causes, etc. You jump over the mitigation plan, but without a clear analysis of the type of risk that you need to manage.
Yeah.
And then that is the reason to explain some techniques that is not my own techniques. They are very well known, but they with the idea of practicing. And then one possibility is, yes, if you have some specific risk, we can have one meeting just to play with your risk, one of them, and then to explain in detail how to use this kind of techniques to address the problems on the management for this specific risk. Because you could learn a lot by practicing it in one risk.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Patricia.
Hi, Gonzalo. I was very interested in this formal business intelligence unit you commented. Just can you explain a little bit more about it, and if it's going to be a reality at HBP?
Well, we have proposed it and we discussed it with Pavel and Stephen in the group of e-brains, just to convince them that it's necessary. And then the answer was yes, we need to implement it. We decided to start a pilot case of launching this kind of business intelligence activities in the last quarter of this year, because they don't like to start without finishing the evaluation process of e-brains. And then hopefully we'll have the answer in July or maximum in September. Then we will try to do that in October, December, and then to decide about the organization, the internal organization, the activities, and the budget to do that, because obviously the number of activities will depend on the budget. No? And then to be able to start formally 1st January next year. Then the intention is just to start with some pilot activities, something related with technology watch, something related to risk management, something related to scouting, etc. And then to select in the last quarter of the year a couple of topics to see how, and then to feedback on the internal structure of the organization. We were thinking in a distributed structure with a coordination team in our group, but with the participation of people on different parts of Europe, more specifically related to some of the issues.
And one question more. How can we contribute to that? How can scientific work packages, I mean, I don't know if PIs or package leaders or managers, how are we going to be involved in that?
Our intention, and this is part of the proposal we have submitted to the board, is to create in all work packages a minimum team of 2 persons devoted to that, not necessarily full-time, it could be part-time. And then to create in this way a specific network related to business intelligence as a cross-cutting structure on the project. The problem is not only to do this kind of things in the context of HBP, but also to pave the way for doing that during the operation of e-brains. Because we need to be sure that we have enough information for decision making in the evolution of the brains, no? And then, for instance, now we are starting to check what could be our competitors in the future, and then how to react as soon as possible, etc., and to have this kind of analysis. And then the problem is that in many cases, and this is one of the typical case, research groups are focused in the problem they need to solve from the scientific perspective, and they don't have the global picture about the problems. And that is the reason to pay much more attention in the future to business intelligence.
Okay, I think we will be very interested to know more about that, and we will comment with work package leader. And yes, we want to contribute.
We need to present something to the deal about that, and then based on that, we could start speaking work package per work package, and then to see how to do that, etc. No, but okay. The idea is to start with a pilot in October, and then to start formally the structure of this unit in next January, next year.
Okay, okay, thank you very much. And nice presentations for both of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional question? No? Guillermo, last word for your side.
Thank you very much to everyone. See you soon in the next course.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.